Hey everybody, how's it going out there? Welcome back for another album reaction. We're continuing our countdown of the top 12 albums of 2020. We've made it to number 7, so almost halfway there. And so far, I've enjoyed every single album, so let's hope this keeps it going today. And before we jump into it, just want to take a quick second to ask you to subscribe to this channel. We are doing these album reactions, and once we're done with the top 12 of 2020, it's pretty wide open, but I'm going to keep the album reactions going because that's part of what we do here. But in terms of what I'm going to react to next, it's wide open. So I'm willing to take requests. I'm going to try to keep up with new albums, but I'm also going to look to the past and listen to some classic albums that I might have missed. So yeah, reacting to the top albums of last year, and that's just kind of because I didn't do a good job of following new music last year, and I just want to know what I missed. And I am using Metacritic to create this list of albums to react to. And that's just because I didn't want to settle on one magazine or one website for a list of the best albums, because every magazine and every website, they have their own perspective. There's no such thing as one universal taste or one universal list of albums that is the objective best albums list. So it felt like Metacritic, which calculates scores and makes an average of all the different scores of reviews, that felt like the closest thing I could get to in terms of an objective list of top albums. And at number 7, we have Moses Sumney. The album is GRAE. So this is going to be the 6th album that I'm reacting to in this series. And now it's about an even split in terms of artists who I knew something about going into it versus artists that I didn't know anything about. You can count Moses Sumney as on the list of artists that I don't know anything about. So yeah, I like to do a little bit of research before we jump into the music. And so here we go. This is pretty interesting. Looks like it was a double album released as 2 separate EPs. And it features a guest appearance from Jill Scott, elements of folk, jazz, indie rock, pop, and soul music. So yeah, I have widely varying levels of experience with these genres of music. Big jazz fan, big indie rock fan. I listen to some pop music, but I don't really listen to a whole lot of folk. And as far as soul music, I mean, if we're going to take it back and we're going to talk Sam Cooke or Curtis Mayfield, then yeah, I can talk about soul music to an extent. But in terms of contemporary soul, honestly, it's just not really a music genre that I listen to. But that's what's exciting about this series, right? Is that it's forcing me to explore music beyond my usual boundaries. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to learn. We're here to expand our minds and expand our musical tastes. As far as learning about the man himself, it says here on his wiki that he is a Ghanaian American singer-songwriter. So yeah, it looks like he was raised in the States, but then moved to Ghana and then moved back to the US. Kind of just hopped all around. Yeah, that kind of thing can be really formative, moving around a lot. I feel like people who are artists, a lot of the time will have that as part of their background, is that there was a lot of moving, a lot of travel. That kind of destabilized childhood, I feel like, can lead a kid to go inward and, kind of explore themselves creatively and artistically, because when you're moving around so much, you don't have time to really settle in and, get comfortable and have a group of friends that you kind of grow with. In a lot of ways, you become a little more individualistic that way. You're having to learn how to make friends and learn how to adjust to new environments. So I feel like that kind of can push people into being more of an artistic sort of personality. So yeah, anyway, that's just a very light amount of research I wanted to do, just to have some idea of what I was getting into, but not know too much, because like I said, I just want this to be a really fresh experience. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump into it right now. This is going to be my reaction to GRAE by Moses Sumney. Let's go. And this album is on Bandcamp, so if you like what you hear today, then remember to support your artists.
Isolation comes from Isola, which means island.
Sort of futuristic and trippy. That's a voice.
Masochistic kisses are how I thrive.
Masochistic kisses are how I thrive. I'm gonna go deep on these lyrics, I bet, right?
Might not be healthy for me, but seemingly
was pretty cool. So pretty interesting so far. Interesting contrast of it being very minimalistic, but also very experimental at the same time. Definitely his voice is doing all the heavy lifting. You know, it sounded like there might have been some effects put on his voice at times, but for the most part, it's just that, you know, lush, gorgeous singing voice and just some little flourishes here and there. Like, they kept teasing at things. Like, at the end of that song just now, you would start to get a drum beat going, and it sounded like it was going to be a really cool drop, and you were going to get a beat. And, you know, and it would give you like 2 seconds of it, and it sounded great for that 2 seconds, but then they'd take it away from you, and it would just kind of creep in and out, but it never, you know, dropped as just like a full-on backing beat. They were always just kind of teasing you with it, and I'm wondering if that's how this album is going to go, or just like teasing you with instrumental flourishes, but for the most part, it's just that voice carrying the whole thing. Interested to find out, so let's keep it going. Next, we have In Bloom. Wonder if this is a Nirvana cover. Maybe not.
I hope our friendship can recuperate and bloom with room to grow. I hope you're not another separate man on a bar. Sometimes I want to kiss my friend.
Man, so much of this feels so haunted. Look at that piano. It's just the one chord, but it just sounds big and ominous.
Passing days, the virility fades, and but the masculine, you've got the wrong
I'm just sort of speechless at this point, just really taking this song in.
You've got the wrong guy.
I'm loving the energy of this song. I had to bring it back one more time. Man, that song was fascinating. It started off really sounding like it owed a lot to psychedelic rock, and then it had a few movement transitions, and at one point it sounded, you know, very reminiscent of a lot of early to mid-90s grunge rock. Not so much in terms of instrumentation, but just kind of the feel, like the songwriting and the attitude he was bringing with the vocal delivery, or maybe not even so much grunge, but more like Ben's era Radiohead, which was kind of adjacent. I feel like there was influence going back and forth as far as that goes. Yeah, it was very reminiscent of that way in which Thom Yorke delivers his vocals sometimes, especially back around that era from the Bends and even into OK Computer. Just sort of like this uneasiness, this sort of like tension. Yeah, I was really digging that song. I didn't have a whole lot to say during it just because I was kind of transfixed by it. Moving on at track 5, we've got Conveyor. Ooh, that voice. I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot during this album. That reminds me of that Outkast song. Which one is it? It's on Aquemini, the one with George Clinton on it. You'll let me know in the comments. If I'm remembering right, on his wiki it said that he didn't learn to play instruments until, maybe it was in his 20s or late teens, that he started by just writing a cappella verses without music. And that really comes through in terms of the way this album is structured and produced. It does very much feel like a vocal-driven, project, and a lot of the music that's under it is definitely not traditional instrumental music. It's almost like fragments and pieces and almost like stream of consciousness. It's almost like being in someone's psyche. So yeah, a really captivating experience. Let's keep it going. And this song has a really cosmic, existential vibe to it. Like that effect on his voice, it just sounds like this song is being sung from the perspective of some sort of celestial being that is also having an existential crisis at the time, because there's just this almost profound kind of sorrow to the way he's singing it. I mean, this album is so psychedelic. It's divine.
Why don't you try some earth tones? Since you claim you wanna die, there's nothing to be scared of. Say I wanna change you. That was never true.
I feel like that song, Color, might be the closest we've gotten to just a traditional sounding song on this album, and it sounded amazing.
What I no longer do is take pains to explain it or defend it. That is an exhausting state. Anyone wishing to meaningfully engage with me or my work must be true.
That's fascinating. It's meet me on my own terms. I can imagine just on so many different levels, when you layer it all on top of each other too, being an artist comes with having to explain yourself, in certain ways. Being a black man in America comes with having to explain yourself in certain ways. And on top of that, being an experimental musician, that has to come with explanations too, So, I think that's where that spoken word piece was coming from, was, living these different lives, in one where, you're constantly having people who misunderstand you, either unintentionally or willfully, and having to explain yourself, and how that's exhausting. So this is just a really fascinating pushback of anyone who wants to engage with me has to meet me as me, do it on my terms. I'm not going to explain myself to you.
When I was a little boy, I screamed, I'm not at peace with dying alone, but I'm not at war.
Really loving that bass line and percussion.
On the shore, no wind.
love this simple little acoustic guitar part. It's just so propulsive. Like, it's just creating so much momentum for this song. You know, a few songs back, there was a song that sounded like Ben's era Radiohead. But this definitely sounds like later era, last 10 years Radiohead. I wish they would have just jammed on that last part there for like another couple minutes. I would have welcomed that. It's like right when it was getting going.
I had two dogs in the summer of 2004. One was bootleg, the other was a health food store. They played angel and demon, but I love them just the same. I found two dogs on the hot concrete of the back porch. They both went gray, adopted a putrid, lifeless stench. The type of shit a child forgets, but the memory resets. When you ask me in a worried fret, have you ever at least loved a pet?
Wow. So was that song about him as a kid just stumbling upon two dogs that were dying? Man, that's just, oof. That's dark. And not only that, but that last line, so basically somebody asked him, hey, have you ever loved a pet? And the first thing that came to his mind was this repressed memory of watching two dogs die. That would be the most immediate conversation killing answer if that is how he responded to that question. It was like, well, actually, yeah. Wow. But yeah, that's heavy. Oh man, I love dogs, and just like the thought of that. Whew, heavy. Like the way he described it was like their eyes bulging like they'd finally seen the truth. Ugh.
Oh, you wanna strip away for a lukewarm embrace. Honesty is the most narrow way, but morality is gray.
Honesty is the most moral way, but morality is gray.
Hey, after all these years, etymologically, isolation comes from isola, which means island. Isolation, which literally means to be islanded. And I thought that's exactly what I've been my whole life. I've been islanded.
Whoa. There's just like a lot of these just like punch in the gut sort of mic drop type of lines, you know? There we go. More of this.
When we die, will you not be together? We can never.
I mean, just looking at the lyrics from this last song, it says the aching, what does it mean to be in love? The ache. It's basically associating love with pain. And, that's a very common trope in a lot of different types of art, whether it's in poetry or, songwriting or filmmaking. There's this portrayal of love as this thing that hurts. But man, my experience, what aches is just living. The pain is in existing, but love is the thing that is restorative. Love is what heals us from the pain that we experience in the outside world. You know what I mean? Sorry, I don't want to sound preachy. I don't want to come off like I disapprove of this music. This was a very beautiful album in its own way, and I really appreciated a lot what was going on this album. But it's just a perspective that I just don't live in, and it's interesting to get an insight into another artist's psyche, and just because this album, if nothing else, was deep. It was heavy. It was like a front row seat to this artist's inner life. There's a lot of superficial music out there, but this went deep. I admired this album a lot, just like on an intellectual level, where like I appreciated what it was going for and what it was doing. But just as a musical experience, the things that I really appreciated about this album are also the kind of the things that made it frustrating to listen to. Like, I'm just somebody who wants a beat, I just want, to be able to lock in, and like what this album was doing so much of the time, especially in the first half, it was really playful, really experimental, and it had a lot of cool sounds going for it. But it would never just settle in and let you just lock in. It would tease you with just fragments of a beat. It would hint at ideas, but just kind of leave them dangling and then pull them away. It wouldn't fully just let you just lock in a lot of the time. And that was the first half. And then the second half, it was totally different vibe. It lost a lot of the playfulness and the psychedelic, qualities of that first half, and just became a lot more somber of an affair. Every song was either about the gray area of morality or of like, am I gonna be alone my whole life? It was just these heavy thoughts. I'm somebody who, really likes grappling with existential questions and going deep like that, but I'm also somebody who does it better if there's some levity thrown in, if it's done with a little bit of humor, even if it's dark humor. Just going straight, deep, existential, but being totally serious about it, it can just get a little too heavy. It can escalate a little too quickly, you know what I mean? It's like, give me a little bit of sugar with my medicine, you know what I mean? It's just like, there were moments in this album that were just a little too heavy for the mood I'm in right now. So yeah, for that reason, I mean, like I said, I appreciated it on some level, but I don't think I'd really be revisiting this album very much. But I'd like to hear from fans of Moses Sumney. This is his second album. How does this compare to his first album? Is this kind of more of what he did on his first album, or is this a total departure? And just, let me know. What are some of your favorite aspects of Moses Sumney's music? His voice is incredible. That's kind of what was frustrating about it, was that I wish there was just a little bit more traditional instrumentation under his voice. So I think I'll leave it at that. Let me know in the comments what you think of this album, and I'm really interested to hear about that. And if you want to subscribe for more of my album reactions, I highly recommend that. And if you do subscribe, remember to ring the bell so you get notifications whenever I upload a new video. My name's AJ. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.